Today we are going to talk about one of my personal favorite topics, nutritional myths. And the reason why I like these topics, because a lot of times it is these beliefs, it is some of these things, and these are just, five or six. There's so many more out there, but there is a belief system that you have ingrained because you've heard it, you've read it, you've seen it on the internet, you've had a friend tell you about it, whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, it is something that is in fact nutritionally a myth. In reality, could actually get you the results you're looking for, where the myth basically continuously gives you exactly what you've always gotten, which is disappointment with what it is you're doing. So let's kind of jump in. Here is what most people are doing when they're trying to determine the nutritional value of something. They're turning over the label, they're reading the label, and they're saying, okay, this is a good food for me or a bad food for me based upon what's on that label. The reality is most people don't even have an understanding of what in fact truly is on that label. They don't understand the unlabeled or off-label ingredients. They don't understand the added ingredients. They don't understand the terminology involved in how sugars are hidden, how salts are hidden, and how other additive ingredients are hidden within the nutritional facts panel that's right there in front of their face. So when people are trying to focus in on this, that this can cause a problem, and in fact actually has resulted in a lot of the myths and issues that people run into. Most people end up looking something like this. They're just complete and utter confusion. This is just too complicated. It's too much trouble to try to figure it all out. Well, what you should probably do is sit back and think for half a second that maybe that's what was intended. That in fact it is the food companies, it is all of the food processors and the like that want to make it so confusing that it is not very simple for us to understand. So what we need to do is have a basic understanding of nutrition in order to get past all of the confusion. But unfortunately, a lot of marketing teams and a lot of false information is on the internet that has resulted in these nutritional myths that we're going to cover today that actually inhibit progress. Myth number one: eating fat makes you fat. You ever wonder where that came from? You ever thought about that? I mean, you yourself very well may believe this, that, if I eat too much fat in my diet, because remember there's the three macronutrients, you basically have your proteins, your fats, and your carbohydrates, but eating fat makes you fat. Well, the reality is fat is brain food. That's how we feed our brain. And in fact, when you look at fat, these are just some examples of things that contain fat, but you also see these things on the shelf that say reduced fat, diet butter, fat-free yogurt, low-fat cheeses, all of these things that are trying to eliminate fat. They actually did a study. A university down in the South decided that they were going to take three groups of monkeys, and they were going to give one group the normal monkey diet, another group a reduced fat monkey diet, and then, of course, the last one a fat-free monkey diet. Of course, the one that got the regular monkey diet acted like regular monkeys, nothing to be concerned about. The ones that got the reduced fat diet became aggressive, became irritable. And then, of course, the ones that got the no-fat monkey diet, one of them actually killed the other monkey in the study. So if you know somebody on a fat-free diet, you might want to watch out because it may make them somewhat homicidal. It is just one of those situations where people need to understand that when you're reducing fat from your diet completely or trying to do one of these fat-free type products, what you're doing is you're not feeding the brain what it needs. And you're not understanding the importance of fat in the diet or understanding what the fat source is. And have you ever wondered where this all started? Well, where it started was right here. You have the former president of the United States, Dwight D. Eisenhower, has a heart attack. And that started an issue with regard to what caused it. Why do we have this issue in America? And it ended up being a fight between two scientists. One was Ansel Keys, the other John Yudkin. Ansel Keys ends up winning the Nobel Prize that year in medicine. He basically came up with the theory that fat makes us fat. Fat is what causes heart disease. We need reduced fat, low fat diets, and that is in fact where America has been for the last 50 or 60 years. John Yudkin, he basically ended up destitute, died as somebody who was basically vilified and didn't know what he was talking about. And what Dr. Yudkin basically found was that, in fact, no, it wasn't fat, it was sugar. It was that pure white deadly substance that we started to add to all of our food in the form of sugar. Well, now we know, 50, 60 years later, which one was right. That's right, it was John Yudkin that was correct. Ansel Keys wasn't. But it has led to the fat-free craze, all the fat-free foods and everything else that are in our food supply. And most importantly, has allowed the sugar epidemic that we now have in the U.S. to propagate. It is, in fact, now at an average of 30 servings per day. The American average, that's right. The American average is at 30 servings per day of sugar. And if you're one of those people that thinks, oh, no, I'm not consuming that much, you need to understand what added sugars are. And you need to start paying attention to your label because while you know what high fructose corn syrup is, do you know what fructose is? See, high fructose corn syrup got such a bad rap and such bad press that the USDA actually let them change the name on the label to fructose because, of course, we want to make sure people understand what it is they're consuming. The average American now consumes right at 356 calories per day of high fructose corn syrup or fructose every single day. That's the average American. 356 calories, empty calories, zero nutritional value every single day. There's a difference between good fats and bad fats. If you're eating the cupcakes, the pizzas, the butters, the potato chips, those are not good fats. I mean, I would agree with people trying to avoid those things. But there are such things as good fats, things that actually help feed the brain and feed the body nutrition that it needs. You need to understand the difference between them. Not all fats are bad. So don't think eating fat makes you fat. There are certain aspects of fat in your diet that you need. You just need it to come from the right places. So myth number one, eating fat makes you fat. Absolutely a myth. Number two, a calorie is a calorie. Probably my personal largest pet peeve when I hear somebody say this. A calorie is a calorie. That just can't be right. It's most people when they're trying to figure out what a calorie is, they have to look up the definition and they start reading all this stuff and they're trying to figure out what does it mean and how do I understand this is what most people view calories as. Those tiny little creatures that live in your closet and sew your clothes up a little bit tighter every night. The reality is it's a thermal energy type of reading. It's basically how much energy does it take to burn this off is what it is. The problem with saying a calorie is a calorie is, if you have a 400 calorie filet steak and I have a 400 calorie Hershey chocolate bar, while they both may have 400 calories, metabolically they are going to affect the body in much different ways. Could you lose weight on a chocolate diet? Well, yeah, of course. I mean, you actually have the study. I mean, you can actually go do the research. There was somebody who went on a Twinkie diet. They did, in fact, lose weight by eating the Twinkies. But the reality is, metabolically, they were an absolute mess. So, watch out. But the whole idea behind this is food. Not all foods are created equal. Just because they have the same amount of calories does not mean that a calorie is a calorie for purposes of what it's going to do for you and keep you on track. And if you're one of those people that's counting calories, well, you need to know that 98% of people that do count calories actually fail in their diet lifestyle modification goals. What you need to understand is the caloric density of food. You need to understand that you want to eat a lot of calorie-dense foods. Understand the effect that has on the body and the digestion system and the inflammation internally in the body. Understand that there's a huge difference between eating a donut that has a certain number of calories and eating an apple and what it does to your body. In fact, if you did the calorie is a calorie concept, what you would think is the high-calorie nuts on the left-hand side are unhealthy. The low-calorie diet soda on the right-hand side is healthy. Well, we know that not to be true. Nuts are a good form of fat. They are actually something that can be healthy for us, actually provide a lot of nutritional benefit to us. Diet Coke has very little nutritional value, if any at all. It doesn't give us anything that we need. It's just not healthy. But yet, if you're the calorie as a calorie person, then, you design this that way. The reality is, if you want the secret to eating healthy, or you want the best diet ever created, just think of this. Half of your plate should be colorful. See, right now, 74% of Americans do not get their 6 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. They're trying to follow all these wonderful different diets and count calories and, eliminate foods and et cetera, et cetera. The reality is, if half the plates that you ate, breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack, whatever you choose, if half the plates that you chose, if you half of your plate every time you ate was colorful with greens and reds and oranges and purples and the like, you're going to notice a huge change in your gut line as well as your energy levels and your health. We just need to go to the simple half the plate is colorful diet, and guess what's going to happen? We are going to start to get the results that we're looking for. The issue is we just don't eat our fruits and vegetables anymore. So, myth number 2, a calorie is a calorie, absolutely debunked. Do not listen to anyone that has that as part of what they're talking about. Myth number 3, carbohydrates are evil. Wow, this one unfortunately has worked its way into medical science. You have Dr. Atkins and his whole role in this, as well as all of the other, what I would call carb reduced or carb elimination type diets that are out there. The reality is carbohydrates are fuel for the body. They actually are what fuel the body. Now, if the body is not provided carbohydrates, will it still operate? Absolutely, it will. But what it does is it converts tissue to fuel, and the tissue that it converts is your lean muscle mass. And by doing that, what ends up happening is you're fueling your everyday with your lean muscle, which is the whole thing that creates the metabolism that you're looking for. The real issue isn't carbs as they stand alone. It's a simple carb versus a complex carb. Unfortunately, in the U.S., a majority of our diet is consistent of simple carbs. But this is kind of like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. When you say carbs are evil, you're getting to throw out not only the simple carbs, which are something that you should try to avoid at best you can, but you're also throwing out complex carbs that have a lot of benefit to us. In fact, this is a great visual. There's a lot of carbs in the right-hand side and a lot of carbs in the left-hand side, but you need to understand the carbs in the left are, in fact, the things you want to keep away from because they will make you look like that. The carbs on the right side can keep you very healthy, give your body the energy that it needs, and optimally help you create the lean muscle mass and lean tone physique that you're looking for. So understand there is a difference between simple and complex. And in fact, remember, those complex carbohydrates can be great fuel for your workouts, your everyday activity, and help increase energy levels without the need of energy drinks, caffeine, and other boosters. We simply just need to provide our body what it's looking for. You need to go in and search and understand the difference between complex carbs and simple carbs. The reality is, if it comes in a bag, box, jar, or can, most likely it's a simple carb. If it comes in the produce aisle, then most likely you're looking at a complex carbohydrate that you should introduce into your diet. So, it's a little bit more complicated than that, but understand the difference and understand the glycemic effect of simple versus complex carbs. So again, myth number 3, carbohydrates are evil, debunked, not true. Know the difference. Myth number 4, your weight determines your health. When people start on journeys of health and wellness, this is one of the things that unfortunately becomes the way that they measure themselves. In fact, most people, when they start, they look at something like this. They look at that scale, and the scale becomes the motivation to quit as opposed to the motivation to continue to move forward because they think weight is the ultimate goal. Weight is the thing that they measure themselves by. The reality is, weight should not be what you measure yourself by. Here you got 2 men that are 6 feet tall, both weigh 250 pounds. Both of them have a 33.9 BMI scale. One obviously is obese, the other one is physically fit with a body fat percentage in the low single digits probably. The reality is body fat percentage is the true measure of health. The scale is just a measurement tool. It's not a definition of who you are. Don't let the scale be your inhibitor. Don't let it be what you live your life by. What you need to do is understand, how do you fit within your clothes? And then, of course, that also leads to this muscle weighs more than fat myth. It is one of those things that you hear people say all the time of, well, muscle just weighs more than fat. So, that's why. You know, a pound is a pound. Galileo, a long time ago in the Leaning Tower of Pisa, proved that a pound is a pound when he dropped feathers and rocks at the same time and they hit the ground at the same time. The reality is, a pound of fat, as you see on the left, will burn 2 to 3 calories per day. A pound of lean muscle on the right will burn 7 to 9 calories per day, roughly 3 times more than the fat. So, what we want is more lean muscle on our body. It's not a matter of weight, it's a matter of density. A good way to think about it is, a pound of muscle is about the size of a fist, a pound of fat is about the size of 2 fists. We want more of the lean muscle because we're going to look better, feel better in our clothes, even if we weigh the same or weigh a little bit more on the scale, because remember, the scale is just a measurement tool. So as I said, there's your calorie percentage breakdown on the fat versus lean muscle. Think fat loss, not weight loss. We say all the time that if you're on a weight loss journey, you failed before you started, but if you're on a fat loss muscle gain journey, then you're headed in the right direction. Here's two ladies that both weigh 175 pounds. 275-pound people, one with a 20% body fat percentage, the other with a 35% body fat percentage. Which one do you want? The weight isn't the idea. If you can just look at the imagery, you would not mind having the body on the left. The body on the right is what 75% plus of Americans have right now. The reality is, we need to focus on the true measure of health, which is body fat percentage. We need to focus on fat loss, muscle gain, not weight loss. There is a huge difference between those two. Again, the best way of measuring that is, how do you fit in your clothes? Don't let the scale be your inhibitor. Don't let the scale be the reason why you quit. How are your clothes fitting? Are you having to go down to that next notch in the belt? Are the shirts a little bit looser than they once were? That's showing progress. That's what we need to focus on. In fact, the scale is just something that really is one of the biggest reasons why people quit. So, myth number 4 and number 5, your weight determines your health and muscle weighs more than fat. No, both of those are debunked. Don't listen to that. Here's your bonus for today. Diet soda is a better choice than regular soda. This is something that people always seem to gravitate to because they don't want to give up their soda. So they think, I'm on a diet, or I want to lose weight, so I'm going to go to the 0-calorie diet soda because it's a much better choice. Here's a test for you. Did you know that 12-ounce Coke will sink in water? A 12-ounce Diet Coke will float in water. Test it out. See it for yourself. See what happens. The reality is, it's a density issue. The amount of sugar, even though they both are 12 ounces, the amount of sugar in the regular Coke will make the thing drop to the bottom. The lack of sugar or the artificial sweetener in the right will make the Diet Coke float. So it's one of those little anomalies of how 12 ounces isn't necessarily 12 ounces in the way that it's created, but this is something that you can do to your kids, or just as a fun test to make sure that these lunch and learns are in fact full of facts, which they are. But the reality is, you can blame your bulging belly on this deceitful drink. See, here's what happens. When you eat or drink sugar in your diet, or take regular soda in, your body has an insulin response. The body identifies the sugar, needs to respond by producing insulin. The insulin goes into the bloodstream, finds the sugar, takes it out of the body, and boom, it's done its job, and that's how it works. When you drink the diet soda, though, guess what? The body has the same exact insulin response. It thinks that it is sugar. It goes into the bloodstream. It's looking for sugar. It doesn't find sugar because it does not recognize the artificial sweetener as sugar. Therefore, the insulin does its secondary function, which is converts everything in the stomach to fat, and it turns it into visceral fat, the kind of fat that basically surrounds our body's organs and tissues. So in essence, when you went and ordered the cheeseburger and Diet Coke, what you really did is you ordered the cheeseburger and love handles. That's right. When we convert over to diet drinks, think specifically diet sodas of any type, in reality, what we have done metabolically to ourselves is done more harm than good. Don't fall for this. Just because it's 0 calories, again, calorie is not a calorie. You need to understand the difference with caloric dense foods and the value of foods. And these artificial sweeteners are a big thing that give you that sweet craving that you're looking for, but at the same time, they come with a big price tag. So understand that your switch to diet drinks very well may be why you're not getting the results you're looking for, and what really you should do is go to the water. So the bonus: diet soda is better than regular soda. Debunked. Not true. Don't believe it. It is a myth. This is one of my favorite quotes. Einstein is attributed to this quote: if you always do what you always did, you will always get what you always got. I always tell people that the medical history of somebody, or their family history, when they say, did your mother or your father have heart disease, diabetes, metabolic syndrome, were they overweight, etc. People, when they hear that and they talk to their doctor about it, they use that as the excuse of why they themselves have the conditions and issues and problems that they have. But the reality is that is our crystal ball. What our parents had, or what our parents' disease pathways were, is what exactly we are going to get if we do exactly what they did. And the reason why I say that is because we learn how to eat in our homes. So any parents that may be on this webinar right now, understand that your kids are going to do what you do, not do what you say. And if you tell them you need to eat healthy, but you're eating out of bags, boxes, jars, and cans, and fast food, etc., they're going to follow suit. They're going to do the same exact thing. But if you want to make a change, if you want to avoid all those diseases, issues, problems, and other things that your parents had, you have the crystal ball of what's going to happen if you keep doing what they did, or you can decide to make a change and live a healthier lifestyle and maybe avoid all those things and avoid Einstein's prediction of if you always do what you always did, you will always get what you always got. At ID Life, we always want to educate you in information that can be helpful. And I hope today's nutritional myths help you. I hope they debunked a few things that maybe you thought were true, or helped you provide some ammunition for people that you've been in an argument with regard to whether or not they are right or wrong, because people have a tendency to not believe things until it's actually been presented to them in a factual way. The reality is, right, wrong, or indifferent, we have a very sick society in the U.S., and at ID Life, we want to make sure that people understand that the diet and lifestyle choices they make are, in fact, what are creating the nutritional gaps that they have, and that by making better diet and lifestyle choices, they can improve those nutritional deficiencies.